Welcome to another episode of Reinvention After 50, a Brand 50 podcast. I'm Robert Erie Artboard, one of the co-founders, and today we have Stephanie Odell interviewing Jacynth Bassett.
Good job.
And she started a company called Bassett-The, which why don't you explain a little bit of what she does?
Bassett-The is online, let me get this right, online age-inclusive independent online fashion boutique. So she gathers designers, and she's out of the UK. So she gathers designers and lines around the UK. She has a couple of outside of the UK, but that are really age inclusive and shows them on older models. So it really gives the visual for older women to see what the fashion might look like on them.
And of course, starting a company like this, you would think she's in her 50s, but she's actually under 30. She's about 29. And it's interesting how she came from a family of lawyers. She actually started, I don't know if she finished her law degree. I think she did, right?
She went to Cambridge and finished her law degree.
Right. But then she really didn't like it and she loved fashion. But what I found interesting is that she not only liked fashion because, you know, of design work and all that, but the psychology of dressing up, how it makes you feel, how it makes women feel. So I found that to be a very interesting aspect of why she chose fashion.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I know that she's under 30 and I've interviewed a couple people now that are under 30 or in their 30s, but I feel like it's such an important intergenerational conversation that sometimes we don't look at younger people as people that we can collaborate with and work with. And she saw a problem. She was shopping with her mom and saw her mom not included in being a customer, really. She was pushed to the back of the store. She was not really taken as a serious consumer when she knew her mom was a consumer and wanted to look good and feel good in her clothes. So she saw a problem. And I love the aspect of solving a problem for her mom. Mm-hmm. And they worked together on doing this. She had no background in fashion. She asked for help. She aligned herself with like-minded thinkers and just came up with a solution, and not an overnight solution. It was a slow process.
Yeah. And, she just started small. And there was this one part of the podcast or the interview where she was talking about, she went to one of those entrepreneur meetings where each person gets 20 minutes and it was all men. And she just got ripped, which is amazing in this day and age that men would even say things like, well, you're a woman starting a business, so you're going to need help. You can't do it by yourself. Now, what I liked about that part of the interview was that she could have just completely given up and say, I can't do this, but it fueled her fire. And as a matter of fact, she was insulted that same evening and she went up to this person and was very direct with him. And a couple of days later, he actually called her back because he liked her directness.
Right.
So she could have folded, but she kept going in.
Right. And I think that's a powerful message too, for us all to kind of keep in mind that sometimes we do give up, or we have people telling us not supporting our idea. And sometimes you have to go elsewhere, or you just have to continue to stand up for your idea if you really believe in it, which she did. And she made it happen.
Yeah. And little by little, she's, paving waves for, women in their 50s to look great, and not only look great, but to feel great.
Right. And feel included. I mean, she's got this whole ageism is never in style. She's part of a council now in the UK on ageism in fashion. She never thought she'd become an age advocate, but she is. And so just listen. It's an amazing conversation. And I really applaud the work she's doing and the collaborations that she's looking to build with other entrepreneurs. Welcome to Brand 50 Podcast, Reinvention After 50. I'm thrilled to have my guest here today, Jacynth Bassett from London. And so we're on a little bit of different time zone, but I started following you. Gosh, you've been in business since 2016, but I think I found you a couple years ago. Jacynth had started the Bassett-The, which is an all-inclusive let me say this right, age-inclusive independent online fashion boutique.
Right.
But you are not in your 50s. No. And I have started doing a few podcasts now with trailblazers and people that are really looking at age inclusion and intergenerational opportunities. And you are one of those people. You are been called a trailblazer by Global Health Aging. And you have started a campaign. You started a campaign, Ageism is Never in Style. And you started your company back in 2016. You were at law school at Cambridge. And I know I read that you were you were doing the budget for what was it? The law.
I was the president of the Law Society.
Yeah.
There, yes. So I had to do a lot of budget work. Yeah.
And you liked that, and you started thinking about running your own business. And then in combination with your mother, Marilyn, who was also a lawyer, or is a lawyer. Is she still a lawyer?
No, she's retired now. Although she says she's semi-retired, but she's retired.
Started seeing that she was being excluded when you went into stores. You always had shopped together. And when you went into stores, you started seeing people and salespeople say, oh, no, we don't have anything for you. And her being excluded and becoming invisible. And that's so true of women over 50, especially as our bodies change. And so you saw a problem and you came up with the solution. So tell us a little bit more about how everything got created with the bias cut.
Yeah, so it was 2012 when I had the idea. I was still studying law, and I'd realized, as you so well put it, that I liked business side of things, and law wasn't for me. And I loved fashion. It's always been a real love and interest of mine, beyond just clothes, but the industry itself fascinates me. The psychology behind why people buy what they buy, how clothes can make you feel, I find really interesting. So I was thinking about that, and I thought then about my mum, so she had me at 40. So from my teens, she was in her 50s, and we were going shopping, and she just couldn't find clothes she would like to wear, as you rightly put it, changing body shape. She also say she had a very sedentary job as well, which kind of, I think we've all experienced what that can be like more recently with lockdown and COVID, what it means to be sitting down and how it changes your shape and can put a bit of weight on, particularly around the middle. And, with online shopping as well, her natural mindset was, this isn't going to work on me, which is very understandable given all the models, right? 20-year-old women who, or if that, size 8, or US, 0 or 2. So it was really that which I started thinking about how she felt excluded. And I understood why the fashion industry is ageist, the theory, in the sense of, this whole idea it's aspirational, but which is a whole nother problem.
Oh, no, we want to talk about that today, for sure.
But it from an emotional sense, it doesn't make sense. And actually logically it doesn't make sense, because women, as they get older, why do they suddenly just stop liking fashion and style? It doesn't just disappear. Suddenly you turn 50 and, oh no, I don't want to wear nice clothes anymore. So it actually didn't make any sense. So after I graduated, I spent some time developing the business, doing a lot of research, speaking to lots of women, doing surveys of women over 50, just really understand how they felt, because I was younger. So I'm 29 now, but I would have been 21, 22 at the time. And I'm very conscious. I'm still not obviously someone in her 50s. So I was very conscious of not ever wanting to seem like it was any sense of, this is what you should wear. It's very much an emotional experience. You're guiding me and the business on what you would love to see and wear. So I really wanted to connect with women that way. And I started a blog actually in 2015, which was called The Bias Cut. And that was just to, again, develop the conversation, to understand more what we wanted. There were opinion pieces on there, clothes suggestions, and it was really interesting to get the feedback. And one of the biggest bits of feedback I'd received was when I did lots of surveys and studies. A lot of women actually said they didn't want to see women their own age as models and represented. About 50% said, I don't want to see someone in their 50s or whatever. Or they might have said, she can be my age but any older. And another comment was, but youngers look better. And it really threw me, because it did make me think, have I got this completely wrong? And then what I realized was, through sort of further investigation and discussion, what was the problem is they couldn't visualize someone their age looking and presented in a different way. They were so used to seeing someone in their 50s looking, dowdy, frumpy, and they couldn't imagine the idea of somebody being very, a beautiful woman in her 50s, stylish, cool, someone that frankly a younger woman would want to aspire to be. So I continued, and actually it was really interesting when I launched the blog and the website. I actually had some of those people who were quite negative come back to me and say, oh, I didn't imagine this at all. I couldn't see this. I actually really like this. So that was quite an interesting experience. So then I launched in 2016. I had 0 contacts, a very small amount of money just from doing a little bit of legal work, and no contacts in fashion or marketing or anything. So it was a very much working from the ground up. And I just did a lot of networking. I did some pop-up events as well. And then in the summer, I had the idea for the Ageism is Never in Style campaign, which again, I was very conscious. I didn't want it to just be my own voice. So I wanted to create a platform that united women and men around the world to be able to share their thoughts, be seen, be heard, support one another. And so I started that up on Facebook because it was, just a sensible place to start it. And really since I'd say this time in 2016, so October 2016 is when things started just to pick up quite quickly. I think through doing more the content, having the platform, we did some collaborations with some brands. It all started to grow. So it's grown really organically to date. And we're now at a point where there's 5 of us, which is great. And the last year in particular, we've seen pretty exponential growth, which we've been very fortunate, obviously, because we're online to be able to continue with the pandemic. And it's just when, we're just taking things to the next level now with more work. We're the lead business partner in a key research study around ageism in fashion here in the UK that's starting this month. We would want to do more charity work. Our campaign's growing. So yeah, everything's just really grown. And as I say, particularly the last year, having an amazing team around me. And what's lovely, it's a team of different ages as well. These are people there's someone who's younger than me, and there are people who are several decades older than me. And we're all united in our passion and what we want to see and this idea of age inclusivity in fashion. So yeah.
Well, I love the story. And my first question, of course, is what does your mom think about all this?
Yeah, she loves it. I mean, she's very much in the heart and soul of the business. She, some people say to her, oh, you're disappointed Jacynth didn't become a lawyer. She's like, are you kidding? I get lots of nice clothes. To be honest, she complains now that she has too many clothes. I'm like, oh my God, I can't win. You didn't have enough clothes before, and now you've got too many clothes. But no, I mean, she's like my number one ambassador. And actually also my boyfriend's mum is, who I'm close with, is equally a really strong supporter. As she said to me this morning, she's seen the business grow because we started dating just as I was building the business. So she's seen it grow as well. And they're hugely supportive. And the good thing is also, I know they'll be honest with me. So they're not going to say, I like this or I like that, just to make, to be nice. They will be very honest with me. And, their feedback means a lot.
Well, I love the journey. I don't know if we talked about this. I started Celebrate the Gray as a blog and talked to 100 women, same kind of thing. And I so appreciate you talking to the end user, because so many people think they have a great idea and they don't ever talk to the person they're building this idea for.
Which to me is just crazy. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
I know.
But you're so right.
Yeah. And just the value that you gave, the power you gave back to women, because I think one of the things I've learned is women can't be what they don't see. So they live in this story in their head of what aging looks like, and it's outdated.
Yeah.
And so when you see it updated, it's like, oh, I didn't even know that was possible. So you're offering possibilities to women to think about taking power back in their aging, which is such a gift. So I applaud you on that level.
Thank
for sure.
You. Yeah, I mean, the most rewarding thing is always hearing the stories, customers writing to us saying, I couldn't believe how much I got complimented. It's like as you get older, you get so used to not being complimented. I remember years ago when I was doing the blog, I was taking some pictures of street style in Italy, and this woman who was a mother, probably in her 50s, she assumed when I said, "Can I take your picture?" I meant her daughter. She couldn't believe that I wanted to take her picture because she looked great. And actually her daughter was so happy. And so it's, it's so lovely hearing the stories of confidence and also trying, we're known for color, we're known for prints, we're known for being fun and playful with our clothes. And it's really lovely seeing women go, I didn't think I could wear this. We actually had a customer the other day, a long-term customer, who emailed me saying, styled by you, because she had some pieces, she had a blouse on that she bought a few years ago. And then we also launched recently an earring subscription. And we had picked as a surprise for her the earrings we thought would go well with her pieces that she'd already bought. And, she was sending me, and it was just so lovely. And this was somebody in her 70s. So it's wonderful to see that reinvigoration and joy that, because as I say, clothes is not life and death, but it makes a difference to how you feel. How you look does make a difference to how you feel, and I think that's really important to look at. Everyone deserves to be able to wear things and look in a way that they feel great.
And clothes can be the outside can be catalyst for change for the inside. When all of a sudden you feel visible again, and somebody once is seeking you out, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, maybe that opens up some possibilities internally for me and I never thought about. So I'm a strong believer that clothes can be a huge catalyst for change for women that have kind of settled in. I mean, I think we're fed, you settle into who you've been, or you evolve into who you're going to be next, and without the stories, the narratives, the visuals, and you're giving women the visuals, and then you're giving them a product to actually start to begin that change. So, and I love that you focus on color and pattern, and because that is the hardest thing for women. We start to dress to disappear. Exactly. And I always say, it's like walking out on a spring day versus a winter day. Which one makes you happier?
Right. And so many women have said to me, I wear navy or black because it makes me feel safe. Yeah. And to hide. And look, there's nothing wrong with navy and black. I mean, I'm wearing something navy right now. But I mean, as you can see, it's also got quite a big print on it. And if that's the reason you're wearing it, that's not a healthy relationship with yourself and your self-esteem. So, wearing a color that's just, for me, my favorite color is pink. So as soon as I wear pink, I just feel like a strong, powerful person. And just color and prints can make such a difference to how you feel. There's that whole psychology behind, what colors mean and things like that. But it's really important. I think actually the pandemic, certainly I've seen more people start to appreciate that actually. Before the pandemic, there's still quite a big sense of, clothes and fashion, it's so frivolous, it's narcissistic. But actually, I think with the lockdowns and people spending a lot of their time originally in like loungewear and sweatpants, they started to realize how that affected their mental state. And actually we've seen more and more people going, I want to dress up, even when I can't go out, I'll dress up for dinner downstairs in a gown, and that's so lovely. And I think it's quite interesting how it's been a slight catalyst for change there in attitudes.
So talk about how you started. You started with 4 brands, 4 or 5, right? And how did you choose those initially? And also let's talk about how it works, because I love the idea that you follow a customer that you will add into her wardrobe.
Yes.
Based on what she's ordered before. So tell us a little bit more about how the platform works.
So it started with 4 labels, and there were 4 small British labels. And I think a big thing that people don't know a lot about externally is the world of wholesale in the fashion industry. So i.e. stocking another brand. And there's so many issues with seasonality and things like that, which get fueled by it. And when I decided I kind of resolved that I was going to launch the website. I think it was like November 2015. And I was a bit scared. And I had a mentor who gave me a really good kick saying, look, you've got a little bit of money, just do it, just get going. And so that was really good. But because it was November, all the books had closed for brands. I couldn't go to trade shows. That being said, even if I had gone to trade shows, I had already been going to them just to feel out brands. And they were so negative at the idea of somebody
Really?
even over 40. Oh yeah, I mean, I remember coming out of one of them and sort of fuming, ranting to my boyfriend on the phone because I couldn't believe at how, you know, as soon as I even said the word women over 40, it was like a recoil in horror. One person said, yeah, but we have young people wearing our clothes. I said, I didn't say that can't happen. I just said it would look great on somebody who's older as well. And so, and my boyfriend actually said to me, well, this is the point, Jacynth. So you should take this as infuriating as it is. This is your momentum. So then I found these 4 little British brands, and they, you know, just helped get things off the ground. But ultimately I had other brands as well that I would love to have added to the collection. And so it's one of those things where it just takes time, particularly online. I mean, I always wanted to be online because it makes sense these days, and also it gets wider access. But there's still, particularly in the kind of premium market, which is where our brands are, there's quite a fear of online still. There's still a lot of, we've got to support the small high street boutiques versus the online. And don't get me wrong, I'm fully supportive of the small boutiques, but I do believe that online and offline can coexist. And, you know, it's different experiences. There's a big difference between a small boutique online versus Amazon.
Right.
So, but there's still a lot of resistance to online. So it was quite hard to get, you know, designers to be interested because of that, or their agents to say, you know, they needed to see more traction. So it took a lot of time to build up. But what's great is now we have brands coming to us. But really, for me, what I look for, brands that hold our values of age inclusivity, quality is really important, beautiful, like flattering cuts, and say a bit of playfulness in there, a bit of fun. And so when I curate the collections, I'm very particular with I'm very picky. I think some of the designers and agents would get quite annoyed. I spend hours at their showrooms. I try everything on, which is also interesting. A lot of buyers do not try the clothes on at all. And it makes a huge difference. And so I try all the stuff on. I also know with the model, because we've had models of different shapes and sizes, so we're able to try the clothes on them also at the photo shoots, and we can go, that doesn't work anymore, we're getting rid of that piece. So we can pull things in and out like that. And really, you know, it's about matching up color palettes, pieces that are versatile but still can stand alone on their own. And I mean, I have all my spreadsheets where I move the clothes and put them all next to each other to make sure. How fun
is that? That would be a dream job right there.
Do you know what it is? But then there is obviously an element of restraint that you have to exercise, which can sometimes be quite difficult. Sometimes there are pieces that I absolutely adore, but you have to go, no, I have to be tough right now. And that's not going to be right for our customer, or it's a risky piece. So it can be tough. But now we're actually also looking at bringing in some lifestyle brands. I'm really excited. Today, we've just received stock of some beautiful hand-poured candles by a British label. They're not on the site yet, but we're, you know, because we see the bias cut as, you know, an attitude, a lifestyle, as much as wearing clothes. As you say, it's about female empowerment and feeling you can do whatever you want, whatever your age. So we're bringing in some products, lifestyle products that will, you know, enhance that and really hopefully continue to help you flourish as much as possible.
So let me ask you, do you hold the stock, or are you buy and hold stock?
Yeah, it's a combination. We hold some stock. We hold everything physically, and that's really important to me. I don't like, because a lot of websites do drop shipping, where, you know, you'll go through the website. I mean, it's basically like an Amazon. It'll come from someone else. And for me, the customer experience is paramount. And the problem with all that is you end up, things go wrong. I've had my own experience as a person personally shopping. So for us, everything has to go through us in terms of quality check, presentation. Everything's beautifully gift wrapped in ribbon and tissue paper. And it just means we can present everything, make sure we can give the best experience possible to our customers. So yes, everything goes through us. And then with stock, it's mostly, you know, wholesale we have, and then some exclusive pieces and also some of our own pieces.
Oh, you're doing your own branded pieces.
Yes. So we've had, when we did I've always wanted to launch my own label, and I've dipped my toe in it. It's quite the manufacturing is a completely a new beast. And so it's something that is kind of gradually working on. But what we did do is when we launched the Strikeout Ageism campaign in March, we designed some t-shirts, very simple but really beautiful quality t-shirts with a little bit of embroidery on them. So there are pieces in there. I've also designed some earrings. So there's pieces in there that certainly have our contribution. Well, I mean, everything has service to say. I'm very particular with what we stock, but yeah, we're hopefully going to be able to evolve more and more what we'd love to be able to offer our customers.
Where do you find, who were the 4 labels that you started with, and are they still with you, or have you evolved past those and into others?
All honesty, they're not with us anymore for a variety of reasons. One, sadly, it became quite evident they did not believe in age inclusivity. So that was immediately, well, that's not going to work. The others are, to be honest, when they're small brands, some have been able to survive and some haven't. One of them I would love to be able to still sell, but they haven't really been able to continue. So they were sort of small little ones, but now probably the most well-known brand that we sell is Scotch and Soda, which is obviously I know is quite well known. It's big in America as well, and that's a very focused edit with them. And then the other labels are a mixture of British and European. A couple of our European brands are particularly popular. There's one called Fabian Chapeau and Pom Amsterdam, and they're actually both from Amsterdam, and they're all around color, and they really perfectly balance easy silhouettes with, as they print and color and liveliness. And that's what's so nice about them, is people can easily go, I can wear that dress, but it's got an awesome print on it. And there's also there's little attention to details as well. Like Fabian Chapeau always has a little charm on everything. Scotch and Soda, actually, I know they did for a while, and they're bringing it back. You can get little necklaces with some of their things. So it's those little attention to detail. And then the jewelry is a big thing for us, and a lot of our jewelry is handmade by independent designers, women here in the UK. Polymer clay is very popular with our customers, and it's a great material, really light to wear but really affordable. And that's so we're really happy to be able to support those smaller brands as well.
Well, I think jewelry, with my styling clients, when somebody is so afraid to introduce color, jewelry is a great way to do that.
It's a great way to do it. It's such a good starter. And we found that the earrings that in particular we sell have a real mix of colors, and they're so popular, and they're so much fun, and they're easy to wear, and they look heavier than they are. They're so lightweight, but it's almost surprising to think how light the polymer clay is. But it's that's why we introduced the earring subscription I mentioned earlier, where it's for 3 months and you get a surprise pair every month.
Oh, that's fun.
So it's like a little gift to yourself or somebody else, because there's such an easy thing to wear and enjoy.
So is it a subscription model, or is it both?
The subscription is purely for that the earrings or the jewelry. Okay. The earrings. That's one particular offering. Everything else is is standard purchase as and when you would like to buy something.
Well, you become a trailblazer advocate for age inclusion. Is that something that you imagined happening when you started the Bias Cut?
No, not at all. And I think the thing that I found really interesting was also from the blog. I was really concerned about the fact that I was younger, that it as I said, it would create a negative. It would prompt negative reactions. So when I started the blog, whilst I was honest with who I was, I kind of took a slightly more behind the scenes role. And it was through, again, conversations with women. They said, no, but I really like the fact you're younger. It's different. It's interesting. You're flying the flag for women. And so that's how I never thought I would become more of the face of the brand. That has happened. And that's just because of the reaction. I think I can possibly count on one hand now the number of women who've reacted poorly to the fact that I'm younger. And, so it's generally been a really wonderful reaction, and communities, women like yourself have been so receptive to the fact that I'm younger. So that's, it's something I obviously love doing, and it's I never thought I'd be a writer or a speaker and those sorts of, I enjoy doing it, but I didn't envisage that for myself. But it's something that I I love to be able to do, and I love to be able to keep pushing the conversation along, and pushing against certain ideas, encouraging different train of thoughts. It's a really stimulating thing to be able to do in a way that, as I said, I never thought I'd have that opportunity.
Well, I love the whole intergenerational opportunity to learn from each other.
Yeah.
And I think that it's really powerful for an older woman to see a younger woman care about her and think and talk to her and really listen, because I think that's what we lose sometimes is our value, and having someone give us that power back is really wonderful. So I can see why people are.
Well, as I say to people, a man should not be interested in women's rights just because he's a man.
Yeah.
Just because something doesn't affect you personally doesn't mean you should ignore it. And actually, ageism is the only ism that could affect every single person. Right. So it's something that we should all be talking about, all engaging with, whether you're experiencing it, someone else is experiencing it. And also the other thing that people often forget is ageism can occur at any age. It's right. It's not just for people as they get older. It's any sort of prejudice based on someone's age. So, there's a lot of ageism towards younger people today. And what we're seeing as a result, though, is so much divide. I don't know how much it's happening as much in the States, but here every day in the press, it's generation versus generations hating on each other. People saying you don't deserve. There was something the other day, it was around, you've had the housing crisis is your fault for younger people. So, we don't deserve to be supported in this. And there's so much animosity going on, and it's fueled a lot by the media. And I think by having intergenerational communication, not only do we realize actually we have a lot more in common than people think. I mean, a lot of my friends are older. My boyfriend's 12 years older than me. And somebody said to me, the only time you know about the age difference is kind of cultural references. Uh-huh. And that's the same with my boyfriend. So he was born in 1980. So he'll talk about 80s and I'm, pretty clueless. But I now love the 80s. I've learned so much. And there's so much more you can do to enrich your lives. And then also there are differences that we can then, if we actually talk to each other, we can understand them and start with some healing. But there's a lot of anger around, certainly here in the UK, amongst generations. And that was what I was talking to the other day. I was saying how I put a little promotion around the Ageism is Never Style on Instagram it was January. And it was so interesting that the number of comments from people who seemed to be teenagers got really nasty,
really
really negative, and saying things, older people don't deserve this, and it's how can you suggest this is even close to racism? Not that I was anyway. And they got and there was even like, oh, this is hilarious. And it was really eye-opening and seeing about that. But it's because they themselves are hurting and feel
right. I was going to say the value hasn't taken their value.
So they're still thinking, well, why do you deserve now to be, why do older people deserve to have people caring about them? Because I don't feel cared about.
Right.
So that's why we've got to really start talking to one another a bit more openly and honestly, and hopefully we can move forward.
It'd be really interesting to do a mother-daughter or an aunt-niece kind of a grandmother-daughter panel and conversation. Mm-hmm. I did an interesting virtual styling event, and my daughter and I wore the same pant, but we styled it she's 21 and I'm 59. So we styled it completely different. But again, it's pulling people together in some sense of a commonality, exactly what you're talking about, and realizing the value of both generations. I think is so important. I know that the Black Lives Matter movement really opened my eyes up to valuing my kids' opinions based on their life experience. They have a certain opinion. Based on my life experience, I have a different opinion, but they're both equally valuable. So learning to listen to each other, I think, is an important tool. And if we can do it around something like fashion, it could be really interesting.
It is fun. I mean, it's like you say, my rule is, I mean, I wear pieces from our collection all the time. My rule is, if I wouldn't want to wear it, why should somebody older have to wear it? Because so often that's the problem, is the people are given these secondary options. Somebody said to me, but when he worked in a very well-known high street shop in England, that when somebody in their 40s came in, they were kind of encouraged to just direct them to the back for the rubbish stuff, you know, and that was their policy. So my rule is, if someone at 29 doesn't want to wear something, why should somebody older? I might wear it in a different way. I might not suit everything, because again, my body is different.
Right.
But what is interesting is then having women my age looking at the site and going, hang on, I don't think that's meant for me because of the model, but I would totally wear that. And again, it shouldn't be that just because someone older is wearing something, you should assume it's not for you anyway. But it's really important. And as you say, I think style is a great form of communication and you know, expressing yourself. So that's a great way for people to connect.
And where do you find your models? I know that you use older models. And did you have difficulty finding models?
Yes. So when I started, it was just friends as a family. Like, for example, my boyfriend's mum, she was one of the original models.
And I was going to say, your mom is beautiful. Has she modeled for you?
She does not. Like, she's very.
I was like, she should join Celebrate the Gray.
I know she does. To her credit, she really puts herself out there to do things for me and to support me that she wouldn't naturally be comfortable to do. So we've done a couple of little at-home photo shoots, and she did take one photograph, but she's very camera shy. So I don't like to push her to have to do it. But most of them were family friends. And then over time, what we started to do is we did public call outs. And again, it was interesting how every season we had more and more people applying, to the point where I actually didn't like it. I felt quite bad. I hated having to say no to people because I wanted to be able to feature everyone. But, you know, there's limited time in a day at a photo shoot. So you have to, you'll know, you have to only be able to use one or two people. So I found that really difficult, but it was wonderful to see more and more people saying they wanted to give it a go. And also some of the women who model for us have actually gone on to sign with agencies, which is also wonderful. And they said, I'd never thought of this as a career, but you gave me that confidence. And then with this season, I also was thinking a bit, because we'd also had professional older models approach us who wanted to work with us. And my rule had always been, no, it's non-professional models. But the more I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about how, you know, these are women who are earning, you know, their careers, and just as with anything, they deserve to be able to have opportunities. And I'm always criticizing the lack of older models in campaigns. So then if we're not supporting older models' careers, that's actually being hypocritical. So this season we decided, we're really excited to actually bring in some professional models, and they all again had different backgrounds. So two of the models, Mickey and Jane, were actually models in the 80s. So, and then you know, we've got clips that we're going to share. Again, really interesting insights. They're saying how they couldn't get work until the last 5 years because of their age. And then one of the models, Rachel, she only became a model at 46 after being a nursery teacher. And then one of the other models, Venus, she was in the Dove campaign for Real Women, you know, about 15 years ago or something. And again, she's only just started modeling professionally. So it was really wonderful bringing them into the fold. And we're still going to obviously feature women who haven't modeled before, but it's important for us to support women who have that professional experience, because they're qualified. You know, just because they look like beautiful women, that's what their job is. So, and there's a lot of skill also, as you'll know, involved modeling anyway. It's not just standing there in front of a camera. So we're really happy to be able to welcome them to the family this season.
Well, I love that. And many of the models in Celebrate the Great were former models or are part of agencies that they're not getting any work.
And they deserve to have that work. Just, you know, it's with anybody. There's a lot of talk around ageism with employment, and that is part of it. It's just, you know, there's that overlap here, and we know there's also gendered ageism. So women in particular struggle as they get older with their jobs. So just because that's their has been their profession doesn't suddenly mean they should be discriminated against any more so than anybody else.
What do you find a big difference between the US and Europe in ageism?
I think the US is more open to ideas. I think that I've certainly found the US has been very open to the concept that we believe in, which is you have a right to age however you want. It's your choice. That if it is even having Botox, as long as it was your choice, that's your choice. Same with going grey. It shouldn't be because of pressure. The problem with we see in Hollywood is the actresses clearly felt they had to do it to get jobs. So that's the problem. But if it was done for really personal reasons, that's your own choice. Whereas in the UK in particular, there's more of a strict point of view about what aging now looks like. And in particular, it is you have to go grey now. If you're dyeing your hair, you're denying your age. And it's awful if you have any fillers and all these things. And
so it's almost turned around.
It's going to the other end of the spectrum. Yeah. And whilst it's obviously wonderful that people are embracing going grey, not everyone wants to go grey. Not everyone does go grey. And my mum's got great hair. She has red on top that she dyes, and then she has her white spits around the side. You can do what you want. And I think that we're slightly behind in that way of thinking. And the other thing is, certainly in the UK, is with the research project that we're about to do around ageism.
Yeah, tell us more about that, because I read a little bit. And
so it's funded by the UK Research Institute, and it's actually been something that was worked on for a while. So I was brought in back, but it would have been in early last year in 2020. Some of us started having a conversation, and we really wanted to work on this project for with charity and also research at University of Kent around ageism. And there was a grant that was available. And it was a three-pronged approach originally. So there was fashion, which was obviously the arm I was involved with. And then there was the workplace and finance. And it was pitched and it didn't get through. But one of the reasons we were realizing where we were kind of at a brick wall is ageism or aging was still being thought of as the last 5 years of life. So whereas the research that we wanted to do was again about age inclusivity and aging throughout the entire life course, they were only interested in funding or supporting improving the last 5 years of life. So that we realized we were a bit ahead of the game there. And I think we still are a little bit, but fortunately another opportunity came up through a business actually that I've mentored. They helped develop business entrepreneurs and business ideas, and one of them was around aging. So I'd helped mentor some of their cohort, and so they brought in a new opportunity. And so I said it's a smaller one, but I said to the team, let's go for it with the fashion. So replied, and Hannah, who's at the University of Kent, we got the grant. So it's technically launching now, and we're just working out kind of the complete direction that it's going to go in. But essentially what we want to do is look at ageism in the fashion industry, first starting within, really understanding and bringing in people from the industry from different angles, whether it's journalists, designers, manufacturing, brands, whatever. And we want to bring them all in so we can really get to the root of the issue and why the industry is so resistant. Because whilst there has been some progress, you and I know it's quite incremental and it's quite superficial. There is so much just tokenism. And like you said earlier, one of the biggest things that brands get wrong is just because you can feature an older model in a campaign doesn't mean your clothes actually suit an older woman's body shape, for example. So there's so many blockages there. So that's what we're really going to get to the root of, is that. And then hopefully we'll have a platform that then develops beyond that, bringing together people to explore ageism, and hopefully even beyond fashion as well. So it's an exciting, it's just started, but it's exciting, and it's great to be the kind of the business lead on it. I'm really privileged to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely needs discussion. I always talk about the education of decision makers.
Absolutely.
And you see a lot of these designers are older and they're still featuring 20 and 30-year-olds in their advertising, and the money's not there. The money is with the older consumer. So it doesn't, when you put all the variables down on a table, it doesn't add up. It's doesn't make sense.
No, it's this whole thing about it being aspirational. But as I always say, it's aspirational, not delusional. Somebody can't aspire to be 20 years younger than they are. They can't reverse time. So it's about aspiring to be the best version of yourself now.
Right.
And so, I mean, we all seen, the beauty campaigns with 25-year-olds modeling and for anti-wrinkles.
Right.
And it's getting actually really tiresome. And what's really great is, whereas 10 years ago, I think it was still kind of the norm, and certainly, when I started developing the idea in 2012, it wasn't really discussed. Now, there are more and more women who actually said to me, if I see that happen, I actually go the other way. It really annoys me. So I think brands are still going to have to wake up. But then there's another hierarchical issue, because you're dealing with stakeholders and shareholders, and often,
they want this return on investment immediately.
And of course, if people are still buying from them, even if they don't believe in the messaging, if they're still buying from them, why would they change? They'll go, well, it's the same like with racial diversity. People go in a makeup brand, well, you don't feature a black woman. Well, but if you're still buying that product, then they're not going to suddenly turn around and go, okay, we'll do it. And sadly, you also have, often, as we know, right at the top, it's men, and still in the fashion, even though the fashion industry is predominantly women, at the very top, it's men. And they have their own gendered idea of how a woman should look. There was a big campaign here by a high street department store. It was about 10 years ago, and Claire Ginsler, who's the stylist I work very close with, starred that campaign. And it was very forward thinking. It was diversity. It had shape, age, disability, ethnicity. It was a beautiful campaign. And apparently it got amazing response, like online and social media. But then they went into the boardroom, and the male people at the top went, well, I don't think they look very nice, so we're not going to do it again. And because also their figures hadn't changed. They didn't see an uplift in their sales, and they were like, it's not worth it. So they've not done it again. And it just, that's where the consumer has to recognize their power and responsibility to also really vote with their wallets and stand by their values.
Right. And that's something that we talk a lot about, is the buying into the age denial messaging, that you're sending the wrong message to decision makers, and then speak with your wallet. Find those brands that are really representing the older consumer in an authentic way, and let your dollar speak. And are there brands that you feel are doing a good job outside of brands that you represent?
Yeah, I think there's some really interesting high fashion brands that are doing a good job with. I mean, Gucci's an interesting one, obviously, because they feature a lot of different diversity. They've done some really beautiful campaigns around diversity. There still isn't a huge amount of age, but they've done some very interesting campaigns. I think that, to be honest, it's generally the smaller ones. There's a few high street brands, like there's a high street brand called Whistles that's recently featured an older model quite prominently, and Marks and Spencer's, some of the quite obvious high street ones. But then there's another issue with people not liking the product. But I saw it, for example, at it was New York Fashion Week this year, and it was Brandon Maxwell, and I saw the report. It was a report, and it said aging is in, and it was the fact that he brought his grandma on the runway. I mean, how is that suddenly being Asian? I really didn't understand. And this is the problem with the fashion industry. You see one older model,
right,
and they give the big old pat on the back, and you think you've done a good job. Yep. And it's the same with bringing back the supermodels. You know, there are, you know, Cindy Crawford and Naomi Campbell. Yes, they look amazing on the runway, but it's not the same as featuring a normal traditional model. So yeah, it's very bumpy. I'm trying to think of other brands off the top of my head, but I think, Zara did an interesting.
Yeah, Zara's
can be quite interesting. Yeah. And Mango did one with Lynn Slater. They did a campaign with her. But the other thing then is, though, sometimes it's not clear, though, in the way they present, whether it's really aimed at that older consumer or whether it's done in a slightly tongue-in-cheek kind of way. So some of the campaigns I feel have been like that, and it's almost sort of funny patronizing of the old. I saw a really awful campaign where they put two wonderful models, I think in their 50s or 60s, and they just, you know, they had skateboards and really like, well, basically clothes that most people over the age of 20 wouldn't probably wear. And it just felt very wrong. So I think there is definitely progress, but I think it comes back to exactly what you said earlier as well, talking to the consumer, because I think there are also brands that have felt they sort of check in with the consumer maybe once every few years and they think they've done their job rather than evolving. That's why, you know, having our campaign and forum Ageism and Never is great, because we're in constant dialogue with our customers and our followers. There are some platforms, and I've seen quite a lot of businesses come out in the last 5 years that are targeting 50 plus who get it very wrong, and they don't understand the nuances and the subtleties and complexities of this demographic. There's still a lot of lumping everyone together, very mass appeal. There's been ones where I have given input, and you can kind of tell when they're going to probably not work. Some will listen, some won't, but it's those subtleties. It's the language, it's understanding the language. It's the getting the language, right.
We were part of a campaign that they used the word modest. And I said, you know, you can be modest at any age. Don't throw modest on someone that's older, because that's not what everybody wants.
No, absolutely. And modest fashion now also applies to a lot of people who want to cover up more, maybe for religious reasons as well. So, yeah, I mean, those kind of, well, there's also the age appropriate. Everyone knows that, you know, that as being a word. And that's why we did the Strikeout Ageism campaign, because it was about transforming words that were negative, well, almost could be seen as a compliment, like, oh, you've still got it, into positive. So we crossed out the still, because it's a bit of a backhanded compliment. So language is so important. And that's, though, where the bigger brands have to take the lead a little bit, because consumers also only really know the language that they commonly, the vocabulary that they see every day. So if a smaller brand tries to use other language, it will only go so far, because consumers also won't necessarily understand what they're talking about. So that's why you also need the bigger brands to take the lead and go, we're not using this language anymore. We're not saying anti-aging. We're not saying age appropriate. We're using these terms. And that's how the smaller brands can really do well.
Well, it's a small, you know, we're all doing a lot of little work it's all starting to add up. So I applaud the work you're doing so much.
You know, I think it's a ripple effect. Yeah. One of the bits of feedback with the original research project that got rejected was that, I mean, they didn't say my name, but they said the brand, i.e. the Bicycle, they said basically we had been unsuccessful at resolving ageism and therefore were not valid as a business partner. I mean, basically, you might as well say Black Lives Matter have been unsuccessful at eradicating racism, so you should just ignore all their work. I mean, it was the most ridiculous statement. But also, aside from the fact that it was stupid, frankly, it was nonsensical, it also completely, I mean, it did feel quite insulting at the time, but it devalued also everything we've done, because we don't know, you know, there's a ripple effect.
Right.
And even the fact that, you know, as I said, we've had women who've ended up modeling. We know women who have changed their style, and you know who they know, and then the messages that pass on, even if you're not huge, doesn't mean it's not having an impact. So I think to measure success in that way was a very crude way of looking at things, I thought. But I think, yeah, it was a bit demoralizing at the time, but it kind of made me go, actually, you know, I know that we are having an impact and we are all coming together and work what you're doing yourself. You know, just because we're not, you know, a big name in the fashion industry or whatever, doesn't mean we're not actually having, you know, getting into the core issues and having an impact.
So speaking about business and impact, and the listeners to this podcast are a lot of women in their 50s that are sitting on an idea and not having the strength or the courage to go forward. Knowing all that you know now, any advice?
I think the first thing is, if you've got an idea, just get going. The best thing you can do is just get going. Even if it's not the full, even if you've got a vision and you can't realize it straight away, doesn't mean you can't start. So I would certainly say, don't let, whether it's financial or emotional or circumstantial obstacles, stop you from just even dipping your toe in the water. You know, even when I just started the blog, it was doing something.
Right.
And you see, and you can grow, and things are developing. And it's like I always say with websites, for example, don't spend all your money at the beginning on this big fancy website, because your brand's going to change, your business is going to develop and evolve, and then you're going to need to revamp it. So just start with something simple and just get going. I think also, don't let people, obviously there's a difference between listening to the right people and knowing when to dismiss the wrong ones. And that can be very hard, particularly with your, you know, I'm somebody who suffers from anxiety and depression, and it can be really difficult sometimes to feel if they've said that. I've had in particular a lot of men say, I don't get why this is an issue, and is that really worth it? But the fact that the good example was the day I created Ageism is Never in Style was because I knew I wanted to do something, and I went along to a startup entrepreneurs session where you kind of got like 20 minutes with different people, different mentors, and they were all male entrepreneurs. And they were so dismissive of what I was doing. And they were frankly quite derogatory. I also got told that I couldn't run a business on my own as a woman. And I've heard that several times, that you have to have a business partner if you're a woman, and you can't do this on your own. And by the end of the circuit, and even one person literally said to me, your idea is really boring. So by the time, I think after about an hour and a half, I got to the last person, I was fuming. I mean, I was so angry, and I was so direct and blunt. And the funny thing is, not only did he then follow up with me and say, you know, I was impressed with your directness, like, let's talk. It was that evening that I went actually that evening to a talk on racial diversity in fashion. And it was the talk and the power of the consumer and what we can do. And that fire, that session had given me, that made me go, I'm doing something that really brings people together to get their voices heard. And that's how Ageism Never in Style was born that evening, the name for it. So, you know, even though I got knocked back quite a bit, you can turn it into fuel to keep you going. And the other thing I would say, don't be afraid if it's wanting to do something in an industry or an area that you haven't got a huge amount of experience in, because I'm an example of the fact I had no experience. My whole family are lawyers. My friends are lawyers. You know, I have no contacts beyond law, basically. And even my godfather's a lawyer, and he said to me, it's like, I don't know how I can help you now. And so I just networked and went to lots of different things. And yeah, it's scary. Nobody likes networking naturally, because it is intimidating going up to people and just introducing yourself. But it made such a difference building that network and building a network of people who can support you. Now, 2 of my non-exec directors are people that I, you know, connected with a few years ago through networking. lost touch, and then they got back in touch with me last summer and said, look, I've picked up on what you're doing again. I really like this. Can we get involved? So just building that network, you never know when those people might actually prove to also help and support you. But don't be afraid. Just it comes back again to just educating yourself. Educate yourself, always be willing to learn and network. And you can sometimes not having experience in an industry is good, because you also have a refreshing different perspective. Rather than seeing things as, well, this is the way it's done, you can say, well, actually, I want to do things differently. So don't be afraid if you've got an idea but you almost don't know where to start. Just try something small. So even starting a website or for Instagram or something like that, just to test things and talk people, just go for it.
Yeah, great advice. I so thank you for being here today. I know it's the end of your day and beginning of mine, but it's always
I'm off to dance class in about half an hour. So
nice. What kind of dance?
I do hip hop dancing, which a lot of people are surprised about, but I did a lot of dance. It was alongside fashion, it was my other main love in life. And in another world, I would have loved to have been a dancer, but I trained in ballet and tap and mod and everything. But hip hop is actually the style that I particularly excel in, which, as I say, most people assume I'd be more ballet, but yeah, it's hip hop, so that'd be fun.
That's a good outlet to have.
Yeah.
So tell people how they can find you.
So Bias Cut is thebiascut.com, and then we're on Instagram at the Bias Cut Boutique. There's also my own personal one if you want to get in touch, and I'm always happy to help and support, and that's Jacynth at Jacynth Bassett, I think it is. I mean, there's not many Jacynth Bassett, so you'll probably find me quite easily.
We'll put it in the notes too.
Yeah, and also we're on Twitter and Pinterest and Facebook. But I'd say probably because of the visual impact of the brand, Instagram, social media is the main channel that we're on. We also have a separate Ageism is Never a Style channel on Instagram, where there's quite a lot of content around quotes and inspiring ideas and videos. So do check us out over on there. And that's and message. We're human beings. We're not a robot behind a screen. So don't be afraid if you just want to send a question or anything like that.
Well, congratulations on your success. And has U.S. consumer found you?
Yes. Yeah, we have got U.S. consumers. We've, I think I'd love to be able to, as a small business, it's not the easiest with import and export duties. And I'd really love to be able to resolve. I mean, we're experiencing that now with Brexit. Our European consumer has dropped off quite significantly because of it. So, but yeah, the US has been very supportive since very early on. And hopefully we can get more, basically because also the brands you can't really get over there. So yes, the US is probably our number, it might be number 2 now after the UK. It would have been 3 after a couple of places in Europe, 3 or 4, but now that's dropped off a bit. So unfortunately, the European consumer hasn't quite got used yet to the fact they have to pay duties. So that's proving a little bit of a sticky issue. But I have to say also, what you do is amazing. And I remember that when we first chatted, you gave me such interesting thought and inspiration. We were talking about the models and how they're real women with stories, and that actually really inspired me, and I took it to the team and we were talking about it, and it's something we want to do, is tell more stories of women, and it's something we're gonna hopefully we're thinking of sort of doing something maybe in the new year around that. So I have to say what you do is amazing, and I wish we could keep talking more often. I hope we can keep in contact, because I think what you do and your insights are just so spot on. It's really brilliant.
Well, it would be a great mentorship, a two-way mentorship. So we should
absolutely.
definitely
We can
keep
support
in touch.
exactly.
But I do think that it's the power of the narrative and the visual. Women need that, because we get so caught up, and I could never do that. And then when you hear their stories, it's like, oh, she is just like me. And that gives women so much power. Yeah. So thank you for noticing that and recognizing that, and also valuing the consumer enough to talk to her. I mean, that makes a big difference.
So ultimately, that's who we're here to serve. So,
Well, it's been so great talking to you. I always love talking to you. I follow you and everything you're doing, and congratulations.
Thank you so much. And absolutely. Let's keep going with the conversation, and we're making a difference already, and we'll keep doing it.
Yes. we'll have a good dance class. And,
Thank you.
We will definitely be in touch.
Have a great day at the beginning of your
I
day.
know my day is just starting.
We hope you enjoyed this podcast. For more information on all of our guests, go to brand50.com, where you'll find show notes and other resources to help guide you through the next exciting phase of your life. Please consider subscribing to our podcast on iTunes, along with other platforms, and write us a review while you're there. You can also sign up for our email list on our site to get the latest podcast updates. We promise you won't get a constant barrage of emails from us, and you can bet we'll protect your privacy as well. You can also follow us on social media accounts listed on our site. Thank you for listening.